The station orbiting Velkar Prime was alive with celebration. Colorful lights hung from every corridor. Music filled the air. The Velkari people were hosting their most sacred festival, the Feast of First Stars. It was a night when all species were welcome, or so the banners claimed. Dr. Maya Chen stood at the entrance of the Grand Hall. She wore her best clothes, a simple blue dress that she had saved for special occasions. She had been stationed on this outpost for 3 cycles now. She had healed their sick. She had mended their wounds. She had sat with their dying elders and held their paws when no one else would. She thought she had earned her place among them. The guard at the door was a tall Velkari male. His fur was silver with age. His eyes looked at her with something cold, something familiar. Maya had seen that look before. On Earth, on other stations. It was the look of someone who had already decided she did not belong. "The feast is for Velkari and allied species only," he said. His voice was flat, final. Maya blinked. "I received an invitation. Ambassador Vorik himself sent it to me." The guard did not move. "There has been a change. Humans are not permitted tonight. The council voted this morning." Maya felt her stomach drop. She wanted to argue. She wanted to demand answers. But she had learned long ago that some doors would never open, no matter how hard you knocked. She simply nodded. She turned around. She walked away with her head held high, even though her heart was breaking inside her chest. She found a bench outside the hall. It sat beneath a large window that looked out at the stars. She could hear the laughter inside. She could smell the food. Her stomach growled. She had not eaten all day. She had been saving her appetite for the feast. Maya sat there in silence. She told herself it did not matter. She told herself she was used to this. Humans were still new to the galactic community. Many species did not trust them. Some feared them. Others simply did not care about them at all. She was just one small human on a station full of aliens who saw her as nothing more than a stranger. Inside the great hall, the feast was magnificent. Long tables stretched from one end to the other. They were covered with dishes from 100 worlds, roasted meats and strange fruits, and glowing drinks that sparkled like liquid stars. The Velkari sat with their families. They laughed. They told stories. They celebrated the night their ancestors first looked up at the sky and dreamed of reaching the stars. At one table near the back sat Counselor Thram. He was an important male. His fur was dark and his eyes were stern. He believed that the Velkari should remain pure. He believed that other species would only bring problems. He was the one who had called for the vote to ban humans from the feast. His mate sat beside him. Their 3 cubs sat across from them. The cubs were young. Their fur was still soft and spotted with the markings of youth. The eldest was named Kira. She was curious and kind. The middle one was Tobin. He was quiet but observant. The youngest was little Mira. She was barely old enough to sit at the table without help. Kira noticed something strange. She saw an empty seat at the healer's table, Dr. Maya's seat. She remembered Dr. Maya well. The human had treated her when she was sick last winter. She had stayed by her bedside for 3 days. She had sung soft songs to help her sleep. She had never left until Kira was better. "Father," Kira said, "where is Dr. Maya? She should be here." Thram did not look up from his plate. "She is not coming. Humans are not welcome tonight." Kira frowned. "But she is our friend. She helped me when I was sick." "She is not our friend," Thram said sharply. "She is a human. That is different." Tobin looked at his father with confusion in his eyes. "But the banner outside says all species are welcome." "The banner is wrong," Thram said. "Now eat your food and do not speak of this again." The cubs fell silent, but they kept looking at that empty chair. They kept thinking about the kind human who had helped them so many times. Kira remembered how Dr. Maya had cried when old grandmother Velka passed away. Tobin remembered how she had fixed his broken toy when no one else could. Little Mira remembered how she had given her a sweet treat when she was scared of the doctor's tools. Kira made a decision. She looked at her brothers and sisters. They understood without words. Cubs often did. When their parents were distracted by conversation, Kira slipped away from the table. Tobin followed. Little Mira climbed down from her seat and toddled after them. They moved through the crowded hall without anyone noticing. Cubs were always running around at festivals. No one paid them any attention. Kira found a serving table near the kitchen. She grabbed a plate. Tobin grabbed another. Little Mira could only carry a small bowl, but she grabbed it with both paws. They piled food onto their plates. The best food. The food that was meant for honored guests. Roasted vren meat and sweet berries, and warm bread that steamed in the cool air. Then they slipped out a side door. Maya was still sitting on the bench when she heard small footsteps approaching. She looked up. Her eyes went wide. 3 Velkhari cubs were walking toward her. They carried plates of food that were almost too heavy for their small arms. The youngest one was struggling with a bowl of soup that sloshed with every step. "Dr. Maya," Kira said. She placed her plate on the bench beside the human. "You should not be hungry while others eat." Tobin put his plate down too. "Father says you are not welcome inside." But he did not say anything about outside. Little Mira held up her bowl. Soup dripped down her paws. "For you," she said in her tiny voice. Maya felt tears burning in her eyes. She tried to speak, but no words came out. She had spent so long being strong, being tough, being the human who never complained. But this small act of kindness broke something open inside her. "You will get in trouble," Maya whispered. "Your father will be angry." Kira sat down beside her. "Then he will be angry. Some things are more important than avoiding trouble." Tobin nodded. He was a cub of few words, but his eyes said everything. Little Mira climbed up onto the bench. She squeezed in next to Maya and leaned against her arm. "Eat," she commanded. "You are too thin." Maya laughed through her tears. She picked up a piece of bread. She took a bite. It was warm and soft, and it tasted like the best thing she had ever eaten. Not because of the food itself, but because of what it meant. The cubs stayed with her. They sat outside in the starlight while the feast went on inside. They told her stories about their school and their friends and the games they liked to play. Maya listened to every word. She laughed at their jokes. She answered their endless questions about Earth. Inside the hall, Throm eventually noticed his cubs were missing. He searched the crowd with growing anger. When he could not find them, he stormed toward the exit. His mate followed with worry on her face. They found the cubs sitting outside with the human. Thram's face twisted with rage. He opened his mouth to shout, to demand, to punish. But then, he stopped. He saw his eldest daughter leaning against the human's shoulder. He saw his son sharing his own food with her. He saw his youngest cub curled up in the human's lap, fast asleep with a full belly and a peaceful smile. He saw the human looking up at him. There was no anger in her eyes, no resentment, only warmth, only kindness. The same kindness she had shown his family 100 times before. "Your children," Maya said softly, "are the best of you." Thram said nothing. He stood there in silence. His mate moved past him. She sat down on the bench beside Maya. She picked up a piece of fruit from one of the plates. "The food is getting cold inside," she said, "but it seems warmer out here." One by one, other Velkhari began to notice. They saw the counselor's family sitting outside with the human. They saw them sharing food. Sharing warmth. Sharing the simple joy of being together. Some of them felt shame, others felt curiosity, a few felt anger, but many more felt something softer, something that had been sleeping inside them for too long. They began to drift outside, first one family, then another. They brought their plates with them. They sat on the ground. They sat on benches. They sat wherever they could find space. The feast spilled out of the grand hall and into the corridor under the stars. By the end of the night, half the station was eating together outside. The formal tables inside sat empty. The rigid rules had been forgotten. What remained was something more honest, something more real. Kira looked up at Dr. Maya with pride shining in her young eyes. "See, I told you. Some things are more important than avoiding trouble." Maya pulled the cub closer. She looked up at the stars through the window. She thought about all the times she had been turned away, all the doors that had closed in her face, all the moments when she had wondered if she would ever truly belong. And now here she was, surrounded by people who had chosen her, not because they had to, but because 3 small cubs had reminded them what it meant to be kind. The feast continued long into the night, and when the stories of that evening were told in years to come, they would not speak of the grand hall or the important guests or the political speeches. They would speak of the human who sat alone in the cold, and the cubs who refused to let her stay that way. They would call it the Feast of the Open Door. And it would become the most beloved celebration in the station's history. All because 3 children decided that kindness was worth more than tradition. And a tired human doctor finally found the family she had been searching for among the stars.